The morning had started with a kind of heaviness that seemed carved into the wind, one of those gray, trembling dawns that made even the strongest souls pause. And yet, on a quiet street corner in Minneapolis, a single moment was about to alter the course of 3 lives. It began when a trembling young mother, clutching her son to her chest as though the world were trying to take him away, stepped toward a bus stop bench already occupied by a man whose life could not have been more different than hers. She took a shaky breath, her voice thin with exhaustion and fear, and asked the question she almost regretted the moment it left her lips, "Can we sit here?" The man, holding a sleek black coffee in a hand adorned with a watch worth more than her monthly rent, simply shifted slightly, looked at her with a softness she didn't expect, and said, "You don't need to ask. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real, human stories to life." Her name was Rachel, and for the last 8 months, her life had felt like a slow unraveling. She had once shared a warm apartment, laughter-filled evenings, and dreams of building something bright with the men she thought she'd marry. But life had turned, relationships had cracked, and now she found herself standing on a cold sidewalk with her 3-year-old son, Caleb, holding on to the last few dollars she had left for the week. Today had been supposed to bring hope, a job interview at a downtown hotel, the first good opportunity in months. But the morning bus had broken down, the delay had cut into her schedule, and the anxiety of missing the interview pressed on her like a rising tide. She shifted Caleb's weight on her hip and sat carefully at the edge of the bench, trying not to take up space she didn't feel she deserved. The man beside her, Michael, glanced up from his phone. He had the polished look of someone who hadn't worried about a bill or a late fee in years, clean gray blazer, phone notifications blinking with numbers most people only dreamed of. He owned a chain of fitness centers across the Midwest, but despite his success, he had been living with a quiet ache for reasons money could never mend. Only a month earlier, he had lost his younger brother in a car accident, and the grief had torn through his foundation with merciless force. So here he was, alone at a bus stop of all places, avoiding the company of people who only saw him as a walking opportunity, avoiding silence because it echoed too closely with his loss. Michael noticed Rachel's trembling hands first. The way she hid them beneath Caleb's little coat. The way she kept glancing down the street as though the whole world depended on the arrival of one bus. He felt a strange pull, something familiar in her fear, something grounding in her presence. Caleb swung his legs gently, looking around with the innocent curiosity only children carried. For a moment, Michael felt something soften inside him. Rachel wasn't used to anyone noticing her. She had trained herself to blend into the background, to move through life apologizing for taking up space. But when Michael spoke, his voice cut through her swirling thoughts. He asked if she was all right, but not in the stiff, polite way strangers sometimes did, in a way that made it clear he actually wanted to know. She hesitated, unsure whether honesty was safe. But maybe it was the exhaustion or the crushing weight she'd carried alone for too long. Something in her cracked open, softly, quietly. She told him she was on her way to a job interview, how the bus delay had shaken her confidence, how she didn't want her son to grow up watching her fight battles alone, even though she always seemed to be doing exactly that. Michael listened. Not with sympathy, but with true attention. The kind of listening that made Rachel's words feel like they mattered. When she finished, embarrassed by her own vulnerability, she apologized for rambling. Michael shook his head gently and told her she didn't owe him an apology for being human. The bus finally arrived, hissing to a stop. Michael stood, gesturing for her to go ahead, but then did something unexpected. He stepped onto the same bus. He didn't need public transportation, he rarely used it. But something told him he needed to follow this moment a little farther. Rachel tried to pay, but her card declined, and her cheeks flushed a deep, painful red. Before she could even reach for Caleb's backpack and search for change, Michael tapped his card and paid for all 3 of them. She tried to protest, but he simply shook his head with a quiet smile and said it was nothing. To Rachel, it was everything. On the ride, they talked in low, warm tones. Michael didn't mention his wealth, and Rachel didn't ask. She spoke of wanting stability for her son, of the small dreams she'd tucked away behind layers of survival. Michael shared pieces of his own struggle, not the financial kind, but the battles of the heart, the grief that had ambushed him in the middle of success. For a moment, they were just 2 people on a bus, both tired, both searching for something to hold on to. When they reached downtown, Michael walked Rachel and Caleb to the hotel where her interview was waiting. He didn't offer advice or solutions, just presence, stability, and a quiet confidence she borrowed from him as she stepped through the glass doors. Caleb stayed with him in the lobby, giggling as Michael showed him how to fold a paper airplane from a hotel brochure. Something warm bloomed inside Michael's chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Rachel returned 30 minutes later with tears in her eyes, not from disappointment, but from relief. She had gotten the job. She stood there, shaking, unable to speak. Michael didn't need her to. He just nodded, proud of a woman he'd only met that morning but somehow believed in with unexpected certainty. Life didn't transform instantly, but that single day became a hinge on which everything turned. Rachel found stability, built confidence, and slowly reshaped her future. Michael found connection, purpose, and a reminder that even in brokenness, he could still be someone who helped lift others. They kept in touch, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. Over time, a friendship formed, slow and steady, rooted in honesty and healing. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world and keeps stories like this alive. Before we end, comment below, do you believe a small act of kindness can change the course of someone's life?